All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie, and I've always got amazing warrior guests. Today is no exception. It's episode 50, and our guest today is Aaron Mitchell. But let me first remind you what you're into with Warrior versus Zombie. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point and provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. And in each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life: entrepreneurs, artists, authors, health practitioners, pastors, business owners, literally any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have a unique value, and a vision that goes generations into the future. And today's guest is no exception. Aaron Mitchell is an incredible warrior. He's a husband, a father, an entrepreneur, a networker, author, and life coach. Aaron is the founder of Chaplapreneur Resources, and that's an interesting name, and I absolutely know that he made that up. Uh, and the author of several books, including Righteous Fury. During his warrior journey, he married his high school sweetheart, Heidi, and they live in Rockwall, Texas, where they're raising their daughter, Anna. In college, Aaron was a Division I wrestler at Clarion University in Pennsylvania, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Communications and then went on to graduate from Bethel Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota. His various life experience in ministry, athletics, and business give him a fresh take on how to live out the Christian life in our day. So, Aaron Mitchell, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How's things in your neck of the woods today?
Well, it's great. It's great to see you today, David, and very happy to be here. No one will be judging my golf swing today, and that's good. Um,
Yeah.
but I do got to give you one disclaimer. I got to give my wife the credit. She made up the word chaplainpreneur. So, she
Okay.
said she's better.
Well,
She's better at everything than me. So I got to make sure that,
well, I thought
I
maybe
didn't
that was
trademark it for her. But
yeah.
yeah, she said you're kind of like a chaplainpreneur when I was working as a chaplain and doing entrepreneurial things, and so it kind of stuck. But it's a great day. I'm excited to be here and talk shop with you. This morning I was working on some things. I'm spending a lot of time just trying to learn and take in and doing some reading, and it's a good day.
Yeah, it's always a beautiful day if you're on your journey and living a version of your ideal day.
Hmm.
And people say, "How can you live your ideal day?" And I say, "Well, I live it every day. I live a version of that every day because if we're moving forward in our own intention and we're kind of living our life by design, we rather than default, then it's a beautiful thing. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's great. Yeah, we had a little bit of a disruption here, as you're aware, and had a little fire alarm go off, and that was all kinds of fun. And I wasn't sure we were going to be able to pull off at least this live in the high version of the podcast. So I'm glad we got to do that. Well, let's do this. I want to get into your story. I want to make sure we have enough time to really talk about how you got to from where you started to where you are today, and then we'll take another break, and hear about where you are and where you're going, and then we'll end it up with takeaways and how to get in touch. So, with that, let's take a quick break. We'll hear a little bit of Ricky Jean Wright for the audio audience, and we'll be right back with Aaron Mitchell and Warrior versus Zombie.
Nice.
All right, we are back. And Aaron, nice check in. Glad you're living your ideal day today and enjoying life, getting some reading in, and all that stuff. So tell me, as we talked about before the break, how did you get from where you started, and you get to define where that is, to where you are today?
Well, where I started, it's kind of a long journey, and as I was telling you before we got on here, it's kind of hard to find that starting spot. But I would say my starting spot for what I do now, helping people to understand the Bible and writing Christian things, starts in going to college. I was going to college uh, I went there basically because I knew that someday I needed to get a job, but more importantly, I wanted to wrestle. I didn't really care if I learned anything or grew into anything. I really didn't think much past being 22 or 23 years old, and I got to go and wrestle at a school and a good program, and that got me to go to school. And at the time, I was very disciplined. I was committed to my girlfriend, and I was committed to working out, and I did what I needed to do to get through my classes. I didn't usually get A's, but I did what I needed to do to get along in life, and I got along with everybody, and I considered myself a pretty good person, and pretty, you know, I was in a spot in life where life was good, felt important. I went to a school that was a small school, and it was competing on a Division I level, and they used a recruiting video of Kurt Angle winning the Olympics to recruit me there, and they had a returning national champion. And what happens when you're young is you go into environments like this, and people tend to make you feel a lot more important and significant in the grand scheme of things than you are. Wrestling did that for me. One time I gave a speech, and I won't tell what class it was. People will be able to figure out who the professor was, but I didn't prepare for the speech. I didn't know what I was talking about, and I actually said in the speech, I have no idea what I'm talking about. And he was involved in our program and everything, and I got a B in the speech. I kind of humiliated myself for 10 minutes, and it was good enough. And so it's one of those things. That's the beginning of the journey. About halfway through school, I was broke up with my high school girlfriend, and I was driving to Niagara Falls to gamble, to kind of feed my rush addiction, and I went north from Clarion, Pennsylvania to Niagara Falls, New York, and we traveled kind of a weird fact. Traveled 66 and then got on Route 6 and went through Kane, Pennsylvania, and in Kane, Pennsylvania, snow's blown over the road, and almost died in an accident. Almost got hit by an oncoming truck. Walked away from it, lost complete control. No logical explanation why the vehicle went the way that it did, and feel that my life was spared that day. And that was a forming moment for me. I spent the next year, had a couple of roommates move out. One dropped out of school permanently, one dropped out of school to kind of find himself, and he came back. And I was living off campus, and I'm by myself. I don't have cable, I don't have anything, and I would leave practice, leave campus, and I was reading the Bible all the time and just kind of searching for answers. And one day I kind of figured out, after sorting through all the scriptures and stuff, I couldn't figure out why Jesus was mean to the Pharisees, because they seemed kind of okay to me. I approached my faith kind of like them, and he seemed pretty hard on the disciples. And and then one day I kind of got it, and I said, I'll go wherever you want me to go. And a couple of years later, I found myself in ministry and on the journey of leaving the wrestling life behind, and that sort of thing. And that was its own process. But as far as zombies go, the biggest zombie for me has always been myself, my own picture of my own personal importance, my own quest for significance, my quest to be important and to do something big. And it really didn't change going into ministry. Everything I ever did, wrote, it's always, a million people are going to see this or whatever. But the most significant thing that always happens is it touches someone personally that I know, or I'm able to help someone, and it's something only God sees, or I know about, or somebody knows about. And that's really what it's about. I'm in my 40s now, and I'm just kind of figuring out, just kind of learning to walk, I guess, with everything.
So when you say your zombie and the striving for significance and impact, that can be a good thing, but as you pointed out, that can also be something where And we all experience that, right? It's all about us. Sometimes you can accomplish anything you want if you're not married to the outcome and you're not married to, okay, this is what it is. But one of the things that I think is very powerful in a lot of entrepreneurs go down this path is the whole your connection to source. In your case, God, to Jesus, to the things, the same connection that I seek, and the same one that I empowers what I'm able to do. I don't beat people up with that, but we all need to be connected to something outside of ourselves, and I think that you sounds like you found that. I've had other warriors who had near-death experiences or had. So anyway, so those near life and death experiences that I've talked to many warriors about tend to change our perspective on things, maybe where we're so inwardly focused or focused on very tight in the world that we're in, and all of a sudden we realize that it could all end today, and
Hmm.
what have we done, right? What kind of impact have we made? It's a thing with warriors, being connected and realizing that kind of the fundamental truth of you can't take anything other than other people into eternity. Everything else is just stuff, and
Hmm.
that's often a realization, and that thing. So tell me about you were on a path. You're wrestling. You're in school. You're in and out of your relationship with your high school sweetheart, which I think I understand you ended up marrying and now have a
Yes. Yeah.
child with
Hmm.
and everything else. So that's
Hmm. Yeah.
that's that's all good, but you're going through that stage, and the zombie of self-interest, self-focus is one that you talked about. So, but tell me about how that transition occurred in your story.
So, I kind of glossed over the accident real quick. Uh, but the other thing that happened that day is I went to the casino where I was trying to get, and we went downstairs, and that was the non-smoking section. I was an athlete. I wanted to be away from smoke. So I come down the escalator, and there was a guy laying on the floor having a seizure or having some kind of convulsions or something. And he had a wife or a girlfriend there. And there were people that worked there that had to like help him. Everyone else was just kind of walking around him. One guy tried to walk over top of him. And so this all happened the same day, and it had an impact too because I was standing there and I'm like, is anyone going to help that guy? I was standing there with my two friends, and this woman, or no, this guy, he tried to step over top of this guy, and he had a superstition about getting to a certain slot machine or something in a certain amount of time, and he, cussed the lady out for not letting him by, and I mean, and that was the beginning of evaluating, okay, what I how I live and how I'm disciplined about my sport, and I'm generally a good person, and I'm a good American, and I go to church on Christmas and Easter, and I was beginning to realize I wasn't, I was a good American, but I wasn't, maybe wasn't the best person I could be. And so that was the beginning of that journey, which I got off track of your question. I'm sorry.
Well, the question about that in terms, and that's okay. I mean, I really was that gives me some more insight into your transition. Now, I've interviewed Ed Trinkle, who's a pastor and stuff. A lot of times, um, that kind of realization not only results in somebody's finding of their faith or whatever, um, and maybe the reality of their faith, maybe they're kind of going through the motions, but what led you to? I want to get you to where you are today. So were you in ministry? Did you get in ministry after you went into the seminary and that kind of thing? Were you kind of on that traditional path?
Somewhat. Uh, I was involved in a fellowship of Christian athletes in college, and part of the beginning of this journey to where I'm at today, one of the things I actually did is I did something, you know, scary. I actually started, I went to church, and the pastor said, you should read your Bible every day. And, the things I did for the sport I was in, I was disciplined. Well, surely for this, if he says Christians read their Bible every day, then Christians must read their Bible every day. So I started reading and discovering what's in it. And I found out real quick that even though I was involved in this group of solid Christians, and some of them had grown up in church, and they didn't know what was in the Bible. And I actually started making stuff up in Bible studies. I would actually start saying that the Bible said things that it didn't say, and I would, say, just like Colossians says it, God helps those who help themselves, and Genesis 51, and the Book of Hezekiah. I mean, I just, and then some people kind of caught on, and then they would do it together with me, but it made me sad realizing that, man, people went through a lot so that we could have this translation into English, and we believe that this is so powerful. If you really believe it's very powerful, why wouldn't you read it? And so, it was kind of alarming to me. And so that was the beginning of me feeling the need to do something about people understanding it. But it was fun at first, and after a while, I became sad. I was like, man, it was too easy to fool people because they don't actually know what's in it.
So you didn't want to take advantage of that. See, I mean, that the interesting thing is that's what,
No, I didn't want to be a cult leader.
well, the term we call today, actually it's happening in our world in spades today. It has a different frame around it, but it's the same picture, right? You've heard the term gaslighting, right? So we tell people things that aren't true, and tell them things that are contrary to what they really do or should believe. But if we say it with conviction, then a good percentage of the people, especially ones that aren't really immersed in the understanding of the situation and aren't getting the information, it's not misinformation, it's misuse of information many times that people are doing. Like I said, I've often said, it's not the things that I don't know that are killing me, it's the things that I thought I knew that aren't true. And whether it's in my health or my spiritual life or my relationships or my finances, you name it. So that's also something that you discovered there. So the book that you wrote, we mentioned Righteous Fury. There was on the journey to that, though, or on the journey where you are today. There was another book that you wrote, right? Is on the Bible. That's where I think you were going.
Yeah. So I wrote the New Testament Challenge. I counted all the chapters in the New Testament. There's 260, and then if you do the math, 52 weeks in a year. You do, an entry 5 days a week. So if someone reads one chapter in the New Testament a day for every working day, 5 days a week, and then I have an entry that goes with it, and it helps people to understand the Bible in context. And context is really what I'm about. I really want people to actually understand what it means. I don't think people should bother knowing enough just to be dangerous or just to be able to get it all wrong. If you're going to learn it, learn it right. I had a professor, a New Testament professor. He said, if you're going to learn Greek, learn to do it right, because you'll just mess people up. So I just kind of decided I'm not really going to learn how to learn Greek, but when it comes to the Bible, I want to know, I want to know what it says, and I think it's important that people know what it says too. And I didn't want to write like there's enough like devotional material out there. There's enough like, there's nothing wrong with it, to give someone a positive thing or whatever. But I wanted someone to be able to pick something up and understand something that was more important than what I was writing, that they could learn something timeless, and that I could come alongside that. So that was the intention of that. And I've always been this idealistic person, and I think it's going to be easy, and I write the goals down, and then I spend years, chasing after it. But I actually wrote down, and it's in a church bulletin on a sheet of paper somewhere, back in like 2005. Hey, we're going to be going through the New Testament Challenge, and it's, and I had started writing it. Well, it took, I finished it in like 2015. So it obviously was much harder than I thought it was going to be.
Well, as I often say, and as the theme song of the podcast says, it's a journey. It's not the getting there. Um, and the whole concept of we know where we're going, but we build on that a day at a time. So, any other challenges that you've experienced along the way? I mean, I know the thing that I always find about warriors is we minimize the challenges. We don't like to look back. We don't want to dwell there because the objective is to move forward in our lives and continue to fulfill the purpose that we were put here for. Anything else that got in your way along the way?
Well, yeah, I mean, related to self and selfishness and stuff is what a lot of it always comes back to for me. And my own idea of what success looks like. You chase after certain goals, but then measuring yourself by other things. Um, I've wrestled severely with depression, and I actually have an entry on my blog on chaplapreneur.wordpress.com. Several of them. One title that's easy to remember though is "Blessed with Depression," because I actually didn't take it seriously when I was working as a pastor, and there were people that tried to talk to me, and I just kind of thought they needed to read the Bible more or something. I didn't really have an answer or a context. Um, but depression and anxiety, I've wrestled with that since the end of you know wrestling being over. That's not a source of it, anymore. But that followed me, and then other things, and my own version of perfectionism, and wanting to have the next book done, wanting to be a good husband, wanting to be a good father, saying the wrong thing, um, standing up at a networking meeting and blowing my 30-second presentation. I mean, you have little glimpses of these things where you feel like you're, more important than you are, and when you feel like you're more important than you are, you feel like you can mess things up more than the reality. I mean, um, you know, it's like looking at yourself on a Zoom call. Like, I notice everything about me, but nobody, else does. So.
Well, one of the things, Aaron, let me kind of inject there because a lot of the warriors, in fact, all warriors, we have the same zombies in our mind, and that's a lot of times we say there's zombies in our world. There's things like COVID-19, the stock market crash, or the bank,
Mm-hmm.
your housing crash, the various sundry of things that come in, and they're a flood of things that you can hang on to. But we all are, as I say, infected with the zombie virus, and what it really does is when we talk about depression, we say we're really focused on the past. You're focused
Mm-hmm.
on what you did versus what you thought you would do. And then when your anxiety, which is the other side of that coin, where you're anxious, is you're focused on the future. And the real answer to that is, again, it's a journey every day, right? But we all
Mm-hmm.
struggle with that zombie of not being present in the moment, not realizing it's one foot in front of the other. Waking up, I wake up. I'm kind of the other side of the equation. I wake up in the morning anxious. I wake up wanting to think through everything that's going on, try to figure everything out before I get into motion, and then I have to remind myself that it's those steps. And the reality is the past is the past. You can't do anything about that. The future's on God's calendar, and all I've got is today. I've always got
Yeah.
this moment that we're
Mm-hmm.
doing. Just like when we were having a struggle with getting started here because of the fire, you can sit there and dwell on that, or you can realize
Mm-hmm.
that the job is to do what you can do in the moment. Well, let's do this. I think we're pretty close to today. And so what I want to do is I want to take a quick break. I want to come back and I want to hear about what you're doing today in terms of why you're doing it, the unique value that you feel that you're providing with your story, your background, where you're going,
Mm-hmm.
and if anything were possible, what kind of impact would you want to have? So let's take another quick break. We'll hear a little more Ricky Jean Wright, and it's not the getting there for our audio audience, and we'll be right back with Aaron Mitchell and Warrior versus Zombie. All right, we are back. And Aaron, enjoyed hearing your story. I know kind of had to tease it out of you a little bit in terms of some of the things that you're going through. But, the funny thing is, as warriors, we don't spend a lot of time. I've had guests that say, well, I don't like to focus back. I just want to focus forward. But the reality of it is every warrior that's listening to this podcast has gone through something similar to the challenges that you're talking about, whether it's anxiety, depression, self interest, self focus, not being connected to source, whatever it happens to be. We've all kind of struggled with that or are struggling with that at any given point in time. So that was helpful. So tell me now, as I said before we took the break, why are you doing what you're doing? What's the value that you see yourself providing, and where are you going? What's the impact?
So I kind of took a life, my life little phrase, and that is, help the entire world to see Jesus more clearly. And that became kind of the theme of what I try to do, ministry wise, writing wise, teaching wise. And that's, really the goal. If I can help anyone that I come in contact with, anyone that reads something that I write, help to see Jesus a little bit more clearly. Um, and I was thinking about this. I was spending some time thinking about this week. I went to Israel in 2019 before COVID and all that. And I really want to help people to smell and what it smells like in Capernaum and see what it looks like in Galilee. And there is there's a great amount of talking that can go on that becomes very circular. Did Jesus really die? Did he really die for our sins, raised from the dead? Those types of things. I obviously believe that. We believe that. That's it's key to being a Christian. But there's some you know, conversation that goes on over that. What there isn't conversation on is there was a man that is, he undeniably, we have more proof than ever and about any other historical figure that from the ancient world, that this guy really lived and he really walked around and he lived to be, on this earth between 30 and 40 years old. And he was here for a while and he went away and to connect, right now I'm writing a historical fiction type of thing that deals with biblical things, or a Christian type of novel dealing with that time period. And I stood in Capernaum 2 years ago, and I could still, kind of taste a little bit of salt like on my mouth. And I was standing there, and it was very hot, and it was June, and I'm looking at the sea, and it's peaceful, and the sea, is, more like a lake, but it's called the Sea of Galilee, and I know certain things about that place, like Jesus, pronounced a curse over that area because of their lack of belief. And today, Israel's like Disneyland for the religious adults, and in that particular city, there's no vendors there. There's no one selling any food. There's no one selling anything. It still stands today. I know that there's a spot that they say John the Baptist baptized Jesus, and they have that spot, for tourism reasons. But if you really study and you learn about the Old Testament customs, and there needed to be flowing water for the Old Testament purification, John the Baptist was in the Jordan, and it was flowing water, and he probably walked up and down, and it was actually the best place to reach all different types of people. He had to walk through Samaria, and he was up by the working people in Galilee, and he was down by the religious people down, near Jerusalem, but far enough away that the tax collectors could still come out, and they didn't have to be bothered in Jerusalem. And so I want people to experience the Bible. I don't think it's just a book. I don't think that it's just something to gloss over like we're reading some other ancient thing. And so that's the reason I do what I do.
So that's your reason. Um, you mentioned your experience going to the Holy Land, that kind of thing, unique values. So um, there are other writers, other people. You've been on your journey, and as I always say, all warriors, whenever it comes to any particular thing we're encountering, there's a unique value that we provide. What would you, looking at yourself, looking at your journey, what is it that you tend to bring other than your, well, I mean, one of the things I see is your very humble now approach to sharing what you know, but what would you say is your unique value?
I would say that, you know, I grew up um, moderately in church and all that, but really became serious about it later. Um, the sports thing has always been a part of it. You know, my daughter right now, she's heavily involved in club soccer, and I'm allowed to like say things to her during a game until like 10 minutes in when she says, "You got to stop." You know, you got to stop telling me. You know, um, I think, you know, in general, um, there's a lot of people living out their faith, and then when it comes to church, we try to fit into the church's mold. And you know, I've been told that, you know, well, if your kid's playing sports on Sundays, she should never do it. You know, this and that. If I would have been told that growing up, um, my story would have been much different. You know, one piece of my story is I used to watch the Philadelphia Eagles, and on CBS, I can't believe they allowed this, but I listened to Reggie White pray before a game, and it was like nothing I ever heard before. He was obviously talking to someone that he believed was there. You know, it wasn't some written out prayer. You know, so for me, you know, I hope that you know, my unique experiences, my unique um, life journey, you know, I hope that that helps to piece together thing. You know, I have the theological training, but then the practical, and then having been in business and that sort of thing, you um, gain certain real world experiences. And as I'm studying like what was going on in the Sea of Galilee, and you start piecing things together, like 2,000 years ago, these people, their life was hard and they struggled, but they really had some of the same problems with communicating the gospel message as we do today. And the same, you know, people have always been the same. You know, uh, the world might have more opportunity for sin, but people have always been sinful, you know, myself included. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
interesting. So let's kind of land the plane for this segment in terms of what would the impact? Are you looking, you know, with your book, writing your books? You mentioned earlier the aspiration to, you know, have millions of people. Is it a, are you really look? Some people, you know, I want to impact my local community. Some people want to, and then some people, you know, want to get their message out to the masses. What's the, if anything were possible, and as you know, because you're a Christian as well, all things are possible. So if anything were possible, what kind of impact would you want to have?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that fire alarm stopped. I mean, I was like, I didn't think that was possible, you know. So praying in faith. But what impact? You know, obviously, a lot of that when I was talking about, you know, millions of people reading, you know, that's my fleshly side of things. I think that the right answer is, you know, um, let's do what, you know, God wants me to do. Let's live a life that God wants me to have that looks the same in private as it does in public. Let's live a life that, you know, uh, if He wants me to write, you know, with Righteous Fury, you know, to write, I started writing that book, and I don't know, it was more therapeutic for me than anything. Probably, I started writing it, and I was talking to my wife about it, and I talked to different people, and it was like, so, you know, do you think anyone will read an MMA book about fighting? I don't know, but it's fun. And what came out of it is I got people who have messaged me that they don't go to church. They don't want anything to do with church people I grew up with, and they asked me if I'm writing a sequel. You know, I've had people ask me, "Are you writing a sequel?" And I'm like, I don't know. You know, I'm trying to write this thing, and I got off track with one. And so some of them have reached out to me and said, "You have to write it, and if you don't write it, you need to tell me what happens to these people." And that was very rewarding to me because I'm thinking, okay, I just started down this path, and this character, this main character is a little bit like me, but he's mostly like what I would like to be. And there's a pastor in there that's a little like me, but mostly what I would like to be. And but for impact, I just hope that people see Jesus more clearly. And for that to happen, I have to see Jesus more clearly myself. I tried to sum it up into one word, and I couldn't get past two. So like one of them, my story has been about grit. I just kind of believed and kept going. And then the other part is about faith. And when it comes to writing, is the most uh, faith-filled act I've ever had to do, because there have definitely been periods in my life, periods of time, where I don't think it's going to do anything. I don't think anyone's going to read it. New Testament Challenge was on my computer for years, and then that computer died, and then it was on another computer for years. And you know, but at the end, people have been changed by it. And um, I don't know. I so there's grit and there's faith, and I think if you kind of merge those two words together, um, my story's always been about perseverance in some way, and that perseverance came from a strength that wasn't mine, even from the time I was young. So.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Let's take another quick break. I got the impact there. It's important to understand that you're wanting, your vision is that a lot of people will see Jesus more clearly through the work of your books, through your personal testimony, through your life, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back with the Land the Plane segment. When we come back, I want to hear anything that you, or summaries of anything you'd like us to take away, or the listeners to take away, and then we'll end with how do we stay in touch. So let's take another quick break, hear a little more Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Aaron Mitchell and Warrior versus Zombie. All right, we are back, and it's been a nice journey, Aaron. It's been fun hearing. I like to spend and invest some time on a regular basis myself in the Bible and my own understanding, and I'll never get to fully understand what I know and don't know until I get into eternity myself, I'm sure. But it's a great journey to be on, and thanks for sharing some of your insights and thoughts. So as I said before we took the break, if anything were possible, or what would you like people listening to this podcast, the main points you'd like them to take away?
So I would say that the main point, I touched on those words there, um, faith and grit and perseverance. I was watching a pregame show the other day, and this will help me bridge the gap since I root for a rival team. But I was listening to Dallas Cowboy great Michael Irvin, and he said that hope tends to produce effort. And I think that that was a big quote that kind of hit home for me. I really feel that oftentimes God is waiting on us. We talk about waiting on Him. He really provides the path, and He provides the way, and He waits on us, and we encounter people all the time that can help us along in our journey. So that faith and grit and perseverance working together. But we're more hopeful. We tend to put more effort into something, and we should be hopeful because we have a lot to be hopeful for. We're valued and loved and all that. I do know that there are a lot of people. There are people like me that probably wrote better books, and they're still sitting on their laptop, and nobody may ever see them. Nobody may even know that they exist. But there's someone out there who needs to read it, and they need to see it. And I think that we live in a time right now. It is the easiest thing in the world to write a book and get it out there. It's not easy to write it. It's not easy to write a good one, but as far as like, you know, Amazon makes it easy to publish, everyone makes it very easy. So um, we're really left with excuses, and sometimes uh, maybe God has called you to do something, you've been asked to do something, or you're burdened to do something. You know, there's something that needs to be done, and you're not going to be burdened to do the next thing until the first thing is done. So you might as well finish, the first thing.
Okay, yeah, that's actually some brilliant points there. Obviously, tenacity, perseverance, the grit to keep moving forward is a warrior nugget that every warrior should continue to remember. What I liked about what you said, a little story there with, is the fact that it's the hope, it's the faith. I tell people often, I know the end of the book is as troubling as it may be right now, or you may think we're winning or losing, or and this could be in any aspect of our lives, any apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse, as I said, describe 2020 that we're going through. You can feel hopeless, but having the hope and then having faith that it's going to work out is a powerful motivator to continue with that perseverance and continuing to pursue that life purpose that is in your heart, that every warrior that I've ever encountered, they really know it, whether you're letting perfection get in the way of progress or whatever. Every warrior understands that there is a purpose, there is a reason, they have a unique reason for being here, and you've clearly described that you want to help people see Jesus more clearly. So this has been a great journey, Aaron. If we want to get back in touch with you, I know you're new to the BeeKonnected platform, and we'll get your profile built out there and people will be able to reach you there. But where else do we find Aaron Mitchell? Where else should we look for you after this podcast?
So the made up word makes it easier, to find if you Google Aaron Mitchell and Chaplapreneur. It's like you're writing chaplain, and then it ends in like entrepreneur ends. So Chaplapreneur, but also the site chaplapreneur.com, and then chaplapreneur.wordpress.com. And my books are out there where books are sold. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, New Testament Challenge, Righteous Fury. They're on Kindle, Nook, iTunes, all those places. And I'm easy to connect with on LinkedIn, all those places. Twitter, I try not to speak too loudly on Twitter, but I'm out there. And
you're one of those
love to hear from people.
Twitter stalkers, right? So you're just
right. But that's where I am, and that's the easiest place to find me.
All right. Well, that's been great. Well, Aaron, thank you for sharing. There's been some great takeaways here, and for those that are on the journey. By the way, Ed Trinkle, I can't remember which episode he was, but he's a Philadelphia Eagles fan as well.
Woo!
Dyed in the wool. So not everybody that listens to this podcast are Cowboys fans. Actually, I'm a Chiefs fan. If you want to get into the thing, so I'm not definitely not married to the Cowboys. Although I don't mind rooting for the home team as long as they're not. When they play the Chiefs here in the not too distant future, I will be rooting for the Chiefs. So if you're a Dallas fan, just know that I'm going to be hollering when the Chiefs do good. But anyway, well, let's do this. We're going to land the plane here. I really appreciate this time. It's been a great journey, and looking forward to seeing you in the BeeKonnected platform. For those that are hearing us on other platforms, we are on every podcast platform: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. So you can find us, and we'll be back again next Thursday at 11 Central for another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. Let's hear the final segment of Ricky Jean Wright. And Aaron, thank you again.
Thank you. Great to be here.